On the outside, they were the picture-perfect family, a devoted mother, 2 angelic little girls always smiling, and a father who seemed like the model dad. But on one August morning in 2018, they suddenly vanished. The people of Colorado were stunned. Social media erupted, and the entire nation was left in shock. The killer wasn't some stranger. It was the husband, the father, the man who seemed so harmless. Chris Watts, a brutal crime hidden behind flawless family photos. And a chilling reminder. Sometimes, the devil lives right inside the home we call our safe haven. In the early hours of August 13th, 2018, the quiet town of Frederick, Colorado, awoke to one of the most chilling tragedies in American history. Christopher Lee Watts, born May 16th, 1985, murdered his pregnant wife, Shanann Catherine Watts. She was a devoted mother, carrying their 3rd child. He strangled her, and then, without hesitation, smothered their 2 young daughters, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3. By covering their heads with a blanket until they stopped breathing, the unimaginable crime sent shockwaves across the nation. On November 6th, 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to first-degree murder as part of a plea deal with prosecutors, sparing him the death penalty. But even without facing execution, he will never walk free again. Chris Watts was sentenced to 5 life terms without the possibility of parole, 3 of which must be served consecutively. Christopher Watts and Shanann Watts, 2 people from small towns in North Carolina. He was from Spring Lake, and she, a strong, determined woman, grew up in Aberdeen. They met in 2010 in what seemed like a moment of fate. 2 years later, on November 3rd, 2012, they were married in Mecklenburg County, officially beginning a new chapter that many believed would be filled with happiness. Together, they had 2 beautiful daughters. Bella Marie, born December 17th, 2013, a sweet girl with big, curious eyes and an innocent smile. And Celeste Catherine, lovingly called Cece, born July 17th, 2015, full of energy and always on the move. At the time of the tragedy, Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with a baby boy they had already named Nico. The young family lived in a 5-bedroom home in Frederick, Colorado, a peaceful place they purchased in 2013 with dreams of building a perfect life. But just 2 years later, their financial stability began to crumble when they filed for bankruptcy. Christopher worked as an operator at Anadarko Petroleum, holding down a steady job in the oil industry. Shanann, ambitious and full of life, worked from home as a promoter for Thrive, a product from the multi-level marketing company Lavelle. On the outside, they appeared to be the image of a modern American family, attractive, successful, and deeply in love. But behind the smiles were cracks slowly forming. Cracks that would ultimately lead to a tragedy that shook the entire nation. In the early morning hours of August 13th, 2018, at 1:48 a.m., the car of Nickel Utoft Atkinson, Shanann's close friend and co-worker, pulled up in front of 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado. She had just dropped Shanann off after a business trip to Arizona. Inside the house, Christopher Watts was home with their 2 young daughters. Just a few hours later, signs that something was wrong began to surface. Shanann missed her scheduled prenatal appointment and wasn't responding to messages. Nicole immediately felt uneasy. By noon, when Shanann failed to show up for an important business meeting, Nicole decided to drive to her friend's house, arriving at 12:10 p.m. The front door was shut tight. The doorbell rang, repeated knocks, but there was no answer. Nicole called Christopher, who claimed he was at work, and then quickly contacted the Frederick Police Department. At 1:40 p.m., a police officer arrived. Shortly after, Christopher returned home and agreed to let them search the house. The family dog roamed calmly inside, but there was no sign of Shanann or the two girls. Shanann's purse was still there, containing her phone and keys. Her car was parked in the garage. On the nightstand beside the bed, her wedding ring lay abandoned. The next day, the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, joined the case. Christopher told investigators he had no idea where his family was, insisting that the last time he saw Shanann was at 5:15 that morning when he left for work. Yet only hours later, he appeared on camera for K, MG, HTV, and KUSA TV, standing in front of his home, pleading for his wife and daughters to come back, while behind him, investigators and K-9 units searched every corner of the property. August 15th, 2018. The air in Frederick, Colorado felt heavy. Police brought Christopher Watts into the interrogation room. Under the watchful eye of the security camera, he sat calmly. But moments later, a polygraph test exposed the truth. He had been lying. Christopher shook his head repeatedly, then asked to see his father. His voice grew hoarse as he confessed. Shanann was dead, and it was he who had strangled his wife. According to his account, Christopher had been having an affair and wanted to separate. He claimed that Shanann, in a fit of rage, strangled their daughters, and that in a burst of anger, he strangled Shanann, then killed the two girls as well. But those excuses could not hide the truth. He loaded the bodies of his wife and children into his truck and drove to an Anadarko petroleum oil site where he worked. On August 16th, the nightmare became reality. Shanann's body was found hastily buried in a shallow grave. The two little girls had been placed inside crude oil tanks without a single word of farewell. Just 5 days after the disappearance, Christopher was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a body. Bail was set at $5 million. No one stepped forward to post it. The case was quickly labeled family annihilation. According to former FBI profiler Candace DeLong, perpetrators of such crimes often take their own lives afterward. But Christopher did not. On the Dr. Phil show, an attorney revealed a horrifying detail. While the murders were unfolding, Bella, the older daughter, woke up and walked into the room. Christopher told her that Mommy was sick, then placed Shanann's body on the floorboard of his truck. Bella and her younger sister, Cece, sat in the back seat, not knowing it was the last ride of their lives. At the oil site, he strangled each of his daughters in turn, then hid their bodies inside the storage tanks. November 6th, 2018. The courtroom fell silent as Christopher Watts formally pled guilty to all charges in the murders of his wife and children. The death penalty was taken off the table, not because the crimes were any less horrific, but because Shanann's family made a heartfelt request. We do not want another death. Just 13 days later, on November 19th, the sentence was handed down. 5 life sentences, 3 to be served consecutively, and 2 concurrently, with no possibility of parole. 48 years for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy. 36 years for 3 counts of tampering with the bodies of the deceased. The sentence took effect immediately, with no delay, but the story didn't end there. On December 3rd, Christopher was secretly moved out of Colorado for security reasons. 2 days later, on December 5th, he was transferred to Dodge Correctional Institution. a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin, where he will spend the rest of his life behind bars, far from any glimmer of freedom. December 2018, just weeks after Christopher Watts was sentenced, Shanann's parents appeared on television for the first time in an episode of ABC News 2020. Tears, heavy silences, and an unspeakable grief filled every frame. That same month, HLN released the special report, Family Massacre, Chris Watts Exposed. For the first time, the public saw haunting footage from police body cams and the interrogation room's security cameras, capturing Christopher's fidgeting, evasive behavior, and the gradual emergence of telltale signs that he was hiding the truth. In an audio recording released by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, Mistress Nicole Kessinger described the chilling changes in Christopher's behavior in the days leading up to the murders. Less communication, frequent distraction, and eyes that were no longer those of the man I once knew. Also in December, Dr. Phil brought together 4 top crime experts: Nancy Grace, the sharp former prosecutor; Candace DeLong, former FBI profiler; Steve Cardian, law enforcement consultant; and Susan Constantine, body language analyst. Together, they dissected the motives, secret life, and psyche of the man who annihilated his entire family. In January 2019, the Dr. Oz Show offered a different perspective from the very neighbor who helped police piece together the first clues of the case, playing a key role in uncovering the full truth. Then, in June 2021, Inside Edition shocked the public once again. Private letters Chris Watts had sent to an author revealed that he had planned the murders weeks in advance. In a chilling confession, Watts admitted he had given Shanann OxyContin to end her pregnancy. It would be easier to be with Nicole if Shanann wasn't pregnant. He also revealed an even more haunting detail. He had tried to kill his 2 daughters in their beds on that fateful night, but failed, only to complete the monstrous act the following morning. On December 7th, 2019, the Oxygen Network aired a 1-hour documentary episode on the case, the opening installment of a 3-part criminal confession series. Testimonies and chilling details were pieced together, reconstructing every final minute before the crime was exposed. Just over a month later, on January 26, 2020, Lifetime aired Chris Watts, Confessions of a Killer, a dramatized film based on the case, part of the network's Ripped from the Headline series. Sean Clier portrayed Christopher, while Ashley Williams took on the role of Shanann. But instead of receiving support, the project drew fierce backlash from Shanann's family. They stated they had never been consulted, were unaware of the production, and received no share of any profits. They feared the film would only deepen their grief and fuel the wave of online harassment that had plagued them ever since the tragedy. The tragic story of the Watts family is not only a warning about crimes that happen within the walls of a family, but also a testament to the complex, sometimes dark realities hidden beneath the perfect photos on social media. Christopher Watts paid the highest price for his brutal actions: a relentless life sentence, permanent separation from the outside world, and the unending pain he inflicted on his loved ones. This story also serves as a reminder that sometimes darkness isn't far away. It lives right inside the home we once called a safe haven. And with every case like this, society must look deeper, listen closer, to prevent needless tragedies in the future. The Watts family is gone, but their memory and the lessons they leave behind will echo forever.